You've probably been told, just be nicer, be more patient, keep the peace. But here's the truth. Niceness doesn't change a narcissist. In fact, it fuels them. What will change the game is you shifting from people pleasing to boundary setting. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that calmly, confidently, and without apology. We've been conditioned to think that if someone is difficult, if they're selfish, if they're abrasive, what we need to do is soften up, be kinder, be more patient, bite our tongue, because maybe, just maybe, if we're nice enough, they'll recognize it and change. That works with reasonable people. That works when both sides have respect on the table. But with a narcissist, that same niceness doesn't register as kindness. It registers as weakness. And weakness to them is an opportunity. See, every time you fold to keep the peace, every time you go along just to avoid the fight, you're not protecting the relationship, you're protecting their control. You're reinforcing the very behavior that hurts you. It's like handing the keys of your car to someone who never learned to drive. You hope they'll take care of it, but deep down you know they're going to crash it. And the more chances you give, the more wreckage you're left with. That's why I say niceness feeds them. It doesn't calm them down. It doesn't change their mind. It fuels their need to dominate because they now know all they have to do is push and you'll step back. But here's the shift that actually changes things. Boundaries, not walls, not ultimatums. Boundaries. Boundaries are calm lines you draw around your own behavior. They don't control the narcissist. They don't magically make them respectful. What they do is protect you. They define where your energy goes and where it stops. Let me show you the difference. Niceness sounds like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. A boundary sounds like, I won't be doing that for you. Niceness says, I don't want to upset you, so I'll stay quiet. A boundary says, I'm not comfortable with that, so I'm going to step away. Do you hear the difference? One gives away power. The other holds onto it. Now, boundaries don't have to be loud. You don't have to raise your voice. In fact, the quieter, calmer, and shorter they are, the stronger they land. Because when you set a boundary, you're not arguing. You're not debating. You're simply stating a fact about what you will and won't allow in your life. That calm firmness is what the narcissist can't control. And that's exactly why it works. Some of you might be thinking, but won't setting boundaries just make them angrier? And yes, it might. But their anger isn't proof you're doing something wrong. It's proof you're doing something different. If you've been feeding them with niceness for years, of course, they're going to notice when the supply stops. That pushback isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign you're on the right track. And here's the other thing, boundaries aren't about changing them. That's not the goal. Boundaries are about changing you, changing the way you respond. Because when you shift from, I hope they'll treat me better, to, I decide what I allow, the game changes. You take yourself out of their manipulation cycle. You stop playing the role they've cast you in. Think about it this way. You can't control the waves, but you can decide how close you stand to the shore. A narcissist will always send waves of criticism, guilt, manipulation. But you get to decide how far back you stand. You get to decide whether you're going to be knocked over every time or whether you're going to plant your feet and hold your ground. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. The first time, your voice might shake. The second time, you'll feel steadier. Over time, you'll realize you don't have to explain, you don't have to justify, you don't even have to convince. You just have to calmly draw the line and hold it. And that's the beauty of boundaries. They're not about aggression. They're about clarity. They're not about punishing. They're about protecting. And the more you use them, the less power the narcissist has over you. Because the truth is, the power they've held all this time, it was never really theirs. It was yours. And the moment you stop feeding them with niceness and start leading with boundaries is the moment you take it back. One of the hardest things to accept when you're dealing with a narcissist is that you can do everything right, calm tone, clear boundaries, respectful words, and still not get the outcome you want. That's because the outcome isn't yours to control. And if you make their reaction your scoreboard, you'll always lose because they're not interested in fairness. They're interested in winning. Most people get stuck here. They think, if I just phrase it better, if I explain it one more time, if I stay calm enough, maybe this time they'll get it. And every time it doesn't work, you end up frustrated, drained, and doubting yourself. That cycle keeps you locked in because you're tying your piece to their approval. And that's exactly the hook they want you caught on. Here's the truth. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to stand firm in who you are and what you allow. That's it. When you detach from the outcome, you take back your leverage. You're no longer waiting for them to validate you. You're no longer bargaining with someone who was never negotiating in good faith. You're simply saying, this is where I stand, and letting their reaction be theirs to own. Think of it like this. Imagine you're playing chess with someone who keeps knocking the pieces off the board, flipping the table, and then insisting they won. If you keep trying to reset the board and play fair, you'll be stuck there all night. But if you walk away, you win, not because they admitted defeat, but because you stopped letting them play the game with your time and energy. That's what detaching from the outcome looks like. You stop needing them to agree. You stop hoping for that moment where they finally say, you're right, I was wrong. And instead, you anchor your piece in your own actions, not theirs. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If I don't care about the outcome, doesn't that mean I've given up? No, detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the right thing. Your own self-respect. It means you're done riding the emotional roller coaster of their reactions. You can still want the relationship to be better. You can still hope for change, but you stop basing your worth on whether or not they deliver it. And when you do that, something powerful happens. Their words, their accusations, their guilt trips, they stop hitting the same way because you're no longer standing there holding out your hands, waiting for them to drop you a crumb of validation. You've learned to feed yourself. Here's a simple shift you can use in the moment when they attack. Instead of asking, how do I get them to stop? Ask, how do I want to show up right now? That question puts the power back in your hands because how they show up isn't your choice, but how you respond, that's entirely yours. Let me give you an example. If a narcissist says, you're so selfish, you never think of me, the instinct is to defend yourself, to try to prove you're not selfish, to argue your case. But when you detach from the outcome, you don't take the bait. You might calmly say, I see it differently, and leave it there. You're not chasing their approval. You're not rewriting yourself to fit their narrative. You're simply owning your space and walking away with your peace intact. And yes, they might call you cold. They might accuse you of not caring. They might push harder to get that emotional reaction out of you. But remember this, their push is not proof of your failure. It's proof of your progress. They're losing the control they once had, and they're trying to pull you back into the same old dance. Don't join. The freedom you're looking for isn't in getting them to change. It's in realizing you don't need them to. When you detach from the outcome, you stop measuring your worth by their reaction, and you start measuring it by your own consistency. That's how you break the cycle. Because the moment you stop needing them to agree, approve, or accept is the moment you start living free. When you're dealing with someone who thrives on control, the easiest way for them to get it is by pulling you into an emotional reaction. They poke, they provoke, they twist words, and they wait for you to blow up or break down. Because the moment you do, they win. They've shifted the focus away from their behavior and onto yours. Now, the story is no longer about what they said or did. It's about how you reacted. And that's exactly where they want it. This is why calm is your superpower. Not because it changes them, but because it protects you. Calm keeps you from getting dragged into the trap. Calm keeps the spotlight right where it belongs, on their actions, not your emotions. Calm is the thing they can't control, and that's what makes it so powerful. Think about how arguments usually go. They raise their voice, you raise yours. They throw accusations, you throw them back. The whole thing spirals, and by the end, you're exhausted, frustrated, and questioning yourself. Now flip that. Imagine they come at you with the same intensity, and instead of matching it, you stay steady. You don't roll your eyes. You don't slam doors. You don't fire off insults. You stay calm, clear, and concise. Suddenly, there's nothing for them to grab onto, no fuel for the fire, just you unshaken. And let me be clear, staying calm doesn't mean staying silent. It doesn't mean you let things